Hi students, I'm Dr. Divya from TeenEinstein. So let us start the class. If anyone else want to join, means let them join. We'll start now. So we are in our first chapter, right? Reproduction in organism. Now we are moving to the last part of our chapter. In the previous classes, we were discussing about asexual reproduction and different methods of that, right? So far, what and all we have learned in this chapter? Lifespan, then basic features of reproduction, then types of reproduction. That means asexual reproduction, and now we are going to learn about sexual reproduction. Hope up to this everything is clear. I think it's clear for you people. Then let's move to the next topic. Next we are moving to the sexual reproduction. So reproduction, it's of two types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, what is that? There is no gamete formation in this, right? But in sexual reproduction, formation of gametes takes place. That's the difference, asexual and sexual reproduction. In this, sexual processes are there. In asexual reproduction, there is no sexual process. So let's move to the sexual reproduction in detail. So what is sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction means the formation of gametes and fusion of the gametes. First gametes will form and then it will get fused. That is called sexual reproduction. And as a result of that fusion, a zygote will form, right? First gametes will form, then fusion of those gametes, then zygote formation will happen. And later, what will happen? This zygote will develop and it will form a new organism. So in sexual reproduction, what and all will happen? Sexual reproduction involves formation and fusion of gametes to form the zygote. So first, gamete formation will take place, and after that, these gametes, these formed gametes, both male and female gametes, that will fuse together and it will form a zygote. That is the next step. These formed gametes will fuse together to form a zygote. Zygote formation will take place, and from the zygote, it will undergo so many stages, means developmental stages. After that, it will form a new organism or the young one, right? This is called as sexual reproduction. Let's discuss some features or characters of sexual reproduction. Normally, in sexual reproduction, fusion of gametes is happening, right? Just now I said fusion of both gametes, male and female gamete. That means first what will happen? The fusion of male and female gamete. One second. You can see the slide, right? PowerPoint. It's visible. So first fusion of male and female gamete. That should take place first. And after that, the zygote. That zygote should grow and it should form an embryo. Correct? So what? First, male and female gametes will form. These gametes will fuse together and it will form a zygote. And after that zygote should grow and it should form an embryo. Later, that embryo will develop into a baby or the young one of that particular organism. So this is the normal procedure in sexual reproduction. And these are the main steps or events of sexual reproduction. So what are now happening? Yeah. First, gametes can be produced by the same individual or by different individual. See here, so many new terms are coming. Note down that may come. So many terms are there. All these may come as MCQ. The gametes can be produced by the same individual. The same individual can produce the gametes or by different individual. The same individual it is producing the gametes means it is called as uniparental. The same parent will be producing both gametes. That condition is called as uniparental, or by different individual, that is called as biparental. Means same organism it is producing the gametes means uniparental, and biparental means from the same species different organisms will be producing. The male and female gamete will be produced by different individuals. That is called as biparental. Bi means two. Biparental means two parents are producing the gametes. Uniparental means single parent is producing the gametes. Next, offsprings produced may not be identical to parents. The offsprings or the young ones which are produced that may not be identical to the parents. So among the offsprings, itself lot of variations will be there. So there will be lot of variations in the there will be lot of variation among the individuals also. And this involves meiosis and syngamy. This procedure involves meiosis. Meiosis means it is the reduction division, and syngamy. Then another character of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a slow, elaborate and complex process. Sexual reproduction is a complex process compared to asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is nothing but a slow division or something. But this sexual reproduction, that means first gamete formation should take place. Then after that, both gametes should get fused. Then this after fusion, it will form a zygote. This zygote will undergo continuous division and it will form an embryo. It will form an embryo. This embryo will undergo different developmental procedures and this embryo will form a complete organism. So this is the slow process and it is an elaborate and complex process. This is very complex process and it will take so much time. Right, this is the time consuming process, and for each individual, the time taken for this sexual reproduction, it is different. Right, for each individual, the life cycle, that duration of life cycle is different. So in the same way, the duration of sexual reproduction, that is also different for different organisms. So gametes can be produced by the same individual, that is called as uniparental, or by different individuals, that is called as biparental. And offsprings produced after sexual reproduction that may not be identical to parents. There will be a lot of difference from in between parents and the offsprings. Why? The gametes are produced from different organism, or there's so many divisions taking place. The joining of male and female gamete, that is happening. So different gametes are fusing and it is forming an organism. There are some other reasons also. So main reason is the fusion of male and female gamete. Both gametes are fusing. So both characters will come. So there is lot of difference from the parents to the offsprings. In between parents and offsprings, lot of variations will be there or difference will be there. So among the offsprings, there is lot of variation. And in between the offsprings also variations will be there because divisions are taking place for zygote and embryo. To form the zygote and embryo, so many divisions or cell divisions are taking place. So according to the cell division, variations will be appearing that you can learn in the chapter of inheritance. There you will learn all these things. So this sexual reproduction involves meiosis. Meiosis means division. Division in the sense, meiosis is the reduction division. Meiosis is happening and syngamy. Syngamy is nothing but the fusion. Fusion and reduction both are taking place in the sexual reproduction. And sexual reproduction is a slow, elaborate and complex process. It is a slow process or time-consuming process. And elaborate, it is elaborate and complex processes. So many events are there in this sexual reproduction. So that is the difference between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. This is complex and elaborate. Which one? Sexual reproduction. Is it clear? Next. Before going to the sexual reproduction, just before that, let me give a brief introduction about life cycle of organism or the phases in life cycle of organism. So, in the whole life cycle of an organism, there are 3 stages, isn't it? In the whole life cycle, 3 stages are there. In all organisms' life cycle, 3 stages are there. In the beginning of life, no organism can reproduce, right? In a particular stage, after reaching a particular stage, only organisms are reproducing. So in the beginning, in the starting stage, no organism is reproducing. So all the organisms, they have to reach a particular stage of growth. And then it should attain maturity and then reproduction. And after all this, that organism will die, correct? So to get a better idea, I will explain all these things. In the phases of life cycle of organism, see in this, juvenile phase is coming, reproductive phase is coming, then senescence stage is coming. So reproductive stage, in this stage, under reproductive phase only, the sexual reproduction is coming, right? So before that, juvenile phase is coming. So before reproduction, juvenile phase, during this phase, the growth is happening. So in this stage, what is happening? The organism is getting ready for reproduction, or the body of an organism is getting prepared to face the reproductive stage. So in the life cycle of an organism, it has to pass through 3 different stages. Which are these stages? Juvenile phase. First one is juvenile phase, this juvenile phase. Then second one is reproductive phase. And third one is senescence stage, right? So there are 3 stages, 3 phases in the life cycle, whole life cycle of an organism: juvenile stage, reproductive phase, and the senescence stage or senescence phase. Now, first we will learn about the juvenile phase. This juvenile phase is just before the reproductive stage, right? Juvenile phase is coming just before the reproductive stage. So this stage is also called as pre-reproductive phase. Juvenile phase is also called as pre-reproductive stage. Note down, pre-reproductive stage, prior to reproduction. That's why it is called as pre-reproductive stage. And during this stage, what is happening in this stage? The organism will grow. During juvenile stage, the organism will grow and that will attain maturity. That is the juvenile stage. Organism is growing and it is attaining the maturity. And maturity for what? What kind of maturity it is attaining? Maturity to perform the sexual reproduction. After juvenile phase, which is the next phase? Reproductive phase. So, in the next phase, it is attaining maturity to perform the sexual reproduction, or the it is going to perform the reproduction. So, for that, the organism's body is getting ready. That phase is called a juvenile stage or juvenile phase, or the body of the organism, it is getting ready for the sexual reproduction. So in plants this stage is called as vegetative phase. In plants, two stages are the vegetative phase and reproductive phase, right? In plants, which and all stages are there? Vegetative phase is there, reproductive stage is there. Then in plants also you can see the senescence or the plant death, we can see. In that stage is also there. So in plant, juvenile phase is called a vegetative phase, and the duration of this juvenile phase, that is different in different organisms. For each organism, the juvenile phase or the duration of the juvenile phase, it is different, or it varies from organism to organism. And not only the duration of juvenile phase, the whole life cycle. Just in the previous slide, while explaining the previous slide, I told the whole life cycle, the juvenile phase and the reproductive phase, and duration of all these varies from organism to organism, right? So the reproductive phase, the duration of reproductive stage, the duration of juvenile stage, and the whole life cycle, duration of whole life cycle, everything varies from organism to organism. The duration of everything, all these stages, it is different for different organism. So what and all we have to learn under juvenile phase? This phase is also called as pre-reproductive phase. Juvenile phase is also called as pre-reproductive phase. In this phase, organism will grow and it will attain maturity to perform sexual reproduction. This is the growing phase of organism. Either it may be plant or animal. Juvenile phase means the growing phase or the phase of growth. The juvenile phase means in this phase, organism will grow and will attain maturity. Attaining maturity for reproduction. Next phase is reproduction. So in this juvenile phase, the organism is getting ready or making their body ready for the reproductive or to face the reproductive stage or reproductive phase. So there will be changes because it is going to appear in the next stage, or it is going to face another stage. So such kind of changes should happen. So it should attain a maturity to attain the reproductive stage. So in plants the juvenile stage is called as vegetative phase. Vegetative phase is the juvenile phase. In plants, juvenile phase is called as vegetative phase. And in each organism, duration of juvenile phase varies. In each organism, the duration of juvenile phase is different. Not only juvenile phase, life cycle, duration of life cycle, duration of reproductive phase, duration of juvenile phase, everything is different for different organism. Okay, is it clear? Next is reproductive phase. So after juvenile phase, one organism's body, it is ready for the next stage. Which is the next stage? The reproductive stage. And the next stage is reproductive stage, and in this, the development and maturation of reproductive organs. Now the plant, not only the plant, the organism's body is ready for reproduction. So in reproductive phase, what is happening? The development and maturation of reproductive organs. Reproductive organs. The normal body condition is not enough to undergo this reproductive phase. So that organism should develop reproductive organs to face this reproductive stage. And that reproductive organs will form and it will attain maturity. That should be ready. The maturity in the sense that organs should be ready for a reproductive phase. So in this stage, reproductive organs are developing, right? Just now I said reproductive organs are developing in this stage and it is attaining maturity. But in the case of higher plants, we can easily make out the changes. How we can make out it is in reproductive phase or reproductive stage? In higher plants, flower formation it is taking place, right? In higher plants, in the case of plants, flower formation. Higher plants in the sense in angiosperms, flower formation is taking place. Flowers, they are the structure of reproduction. Flowers are the reproductive structures in angiosperms. In angiosperms, flowers are the reproductive structures. Only in angiosperms, flower formation is there. So, in angiosperms, we can easily make out that is the starting stage of reproductive phase. And during the reproductive phase, that organism, all organism, it will reproduce or it will produce offsprings or the young ones or their babies, right? So the young ones or the offsprings, they may be similar or dissimilar. That offsprings which are produced, they may be similar or dissimilar. So that is the difference between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, there will be different offsprings. Offsprings also varies. But in sexual reproduction, there won't be any difference between the offsprings. And how that difference is coming? What I said in the last slide, how the difference is coming? Both gametes from male and female gametes they are fusing and forming the embryo. So both characters will be there, right? From both, they will get the characters. So this is the main reason, basic reason for the difference. So in reproductive stage, during reproductive stage, development and maturation of reproductive organs, not the plant body. Plant body is developing and it is attaining the maturity in the juvenile phase. After that, in reproductive phase, reproductive organs are forming. So, in the reproductive stage, development and maturation of the reproductive organs are taking place. In higher plants, in the beginning of reproductive stage, formation of flowers takes place. Flower formation will happen in higher plants. In angiosperms, flower formation will be there. So, we can make out the flower formation. Flowers are the reproductive structure of angiosperms. So, if the flowers are there, we can make out that is the starting stage of reproduction. In angiosperms, note down in angiosperms only we can make out because flower formation will be there. And during the reproductive phase of the offsprings are produced. In this stage or in the reproductive phase, reproduction or the production of offsprings will take place in reproductive phase. And these offsprings may be similar or dissimilar to parental organism. This may show similarity or sometimes it may be dissimilar to the parents or parental organisms. In each organism, reproductive phase, as I said, the juvenile phase, that duration varies from organism to organism. In the same way, reproductive phase, the duration of reproductive phase also varies in each organism. Is it clear? So next, let's move to the next one. In the case of plants, based upon the flowering and fruiting, there are two types of flowering plants. Based on which character? Based upon flowering and fruiting. The flowering and fruiting, two types of flowering plants are there. Monocarpic and polycarpic plants. Which are now monocarpic and polycarpic. These are all the terms which we need to explain the whole process. That's why in between I'm adding all these points. Note down these points. So based upon flowering and fruiting, there are two types of flowering plants. Which are they? Monocarpic plants and polycarpic plants. Both are flowering plants. Okay. In flowering plants, there are two types, monocarpic and polycarpic. So first one is monocarpic plants. Monocarpic plants, they develop flowers and seeds once in their lifespan. They develop flowers and seeds only once in their life cycle. Okay? Means the whole life cycle, that may be 3 months or 5 months or 6 months or 8 months, whatever it may be, the duration, they will flower only once in their lifespan. And most of the annual plants, example, you can see here the pictures, rice, wheat, then here marigold, then this is radish, this is carrot, all these. This monocarpic plant, they are flowering only once. One flowering stage will be there. So you can see in the case of which one? Pea plant. In cowpea and all, it's common. In everyone's home it will be there, right? Cowpea, that is a common plant. So in that, total duration, it's around 90 days. Normally we'll tell about 90 days, the duration. Or green gram or whatever may be, such kind of pea plants. Maximum the duration is 90 days. In that, 1 month that plant will grow. It will be a small plantlet, it will grow, then branches and all will come. Or in pea plant, it is tendril type, means tendrils will form. So in such plant, in green gram and all, that plant will form, branches and all will come. It's a small plant, but the growing period will be there. It will be around 30 days, 28 to 30 days. So after that, what will happen? Flowers will form. So that flowering, it lasts for few weeks. Up to the end, it won't flower. So the flowering season is there, or flowering duration, that time is there, flowering period is there. Only during that period it will flower. Then after that, flowering will stop. And this form flowers. The flowers which are fertilized, that will form the what? Seeds, right? It will develop the pod, then inside that seeds will form, right? So only once in their lifespan, such kind of plants will flower. So in rice, wheat and all, we can call as monocarpic plants. So what we are doing, first we are sowing the seed in the field, then it is growing. That is the juvenile phase, correct? That growing phase is the juvenile phase. Then it's attaining maturity, correct? Then after this juvenile stage, the flowering stage, that is starting. Flowering stage is the starting stage of reproduction. In flowering plants, that is the starting stage of reproductive stage. It is the starting of reproductive stage. Then flowering will get over, then it will form seed. After that, whole plant dies. Correct? We'll take out, we'll harvest this. We'll harvest all these things. After that, what will happen? That plant will die. So this whole plant dies after one season. You got it? Don't get confused. That whole plant will die after one season. Such type of plants are called as monocarpic plants. Again, in next season, that same plant won't be available or it won't be alive. That plant will die. In paddy field and all, you can see what we will do. After harvesting this, we'll cut and take out all these things. That can be used as a cattle feed, right? So such type of plants are called as monocarpic plants. So monocarpic plants are the type of flowering plant that develop seeds and flowers once in their lifespan. Only once in their lifespan it is producing flowers. And most of these are annual plants. And after a year, the stem, root and leaf of this plant die. The whole plant will die after one season. They are called as monocarpic plants. Next, in some plants, they exhibit unusual flowering. Like some perennials. What do you mean by perennials? The plants that last for at least the minimum duration is 2 years, or the plants which are living more than 2 years. They are called as perennials. Okay, but they will flower only once. See in this picture, now I am saying about some special cases, unusual plant flowering habits of plants. So some plants exhibit unusual flowering. These are perennials, but they will flower during their lifespan. They will flower only once. For example, bamboo. You can see here the bamboo. Bamboo after 50 to 100 years, and it will flower only once. Only once in their life cycle. The bamboo will flower only once in their life cycle. After that, the whole plant will die. Right? The next one is Strobilanthes kuntiana. Strobilanthes kuntiana. This is commonly known as Neelakurinji. Hope you have heard about this. In the blooming season, usually that will attract people. So it happens only once in 12 years. Strobilanthes kuntiana, it happens. It flowers once in 12 years. That is attracting tourist people, right? So bamboo and Strobilanthes kundiana, this will flower only once in their lifespan. Next is polycarpic plants. Polycarpic plants. So now you have learned about monocarpic. It will flower once in their life cycle. So we have studied about two special cases in that, Strobilanthes kuntiana and bamboo. These are perennial plants. That is, their life cycle is Strobilanthes kundiana. It is perennial. Even bamboo is also perennial. It is existing for so many years. But Strobilanthes kundiana is flowering once in 12 years. And bamboo, after flowering, that plant dies. But it is flowering after so many years. Next, polycarpic plants. In polycarpic plants, these are perennial plants. These polycarpic plants are mainly perennial plants. Means lives more than 2 years. The plants which are living more than 2 years, they are called as perennial plants. And after attaining maturity, during reproductive stage, the plant flowers and that forms the fruits also. But after completing the flowering season, the plant is not dying. Compared to the monocarpic plant, it's what we have learned there. Soon after completing the flowering and fruiting stage, the monocarpic plant, whole plant dies. But here, in the case of polycarpic plant, flowering is there, fruiting is there, but after that, the plant is not going to die. It will survive. The plant will be there. The plant is not going to die. But when the next season comes, or the same plant, it will again give flower when a particular period or after a interval, or when the same season comes, again it will flower. The same plant, the plant will be there. The plant will form the flower and it will form the fruit. And after the fruiting season, it will get over. Then the plant will survive. The plant is not going to die. Again in the next season, it will flower. See, you can see in a particular season only we are getting mango, jackfruit, all these things, right? So there is a particular season for flowering and fruiting. but the plant will exist for so many years. They are called as polycarpic plants. Mango, jackfruit, apple, orange, these are the examples. Such kind of plants are the examples. Seasonal flowering. That is the speciality of polycarpic plants. Next is, and some perennial plants, you can see again, in some perennial plants, they'll bear a flower throughout their life cycle or throughout the year that flowering will be there. For example, China rose. China rose is hibiscus plant. In hibiscus plant, you can see flower every time. See, there is no particular flowering season in hibiscus plant. So throughout the year that will flower. There is no particular season for flowering. Next is, so till now we were discussing about the reproductive stage of plants. Now let's see how reproductive stage is there in animals. So how plants will be in their reproductive stage? That's what we have learned now. Now we are going to learn about animals. In animals, before starting of this reproductive stage, animals will show some kind of morphological and physiological changes. Right? Not like plants. Plants also in angiosperms you can make out. Flower formation will be there. There also some changes are there. But not like plants. In animals, before the reproductive stage, before the starting of reproductive stage, animals that will show some special kind of physiological as well as morphological changes. There will be some changes in the physiology and morphology of animals before starting the reproductive stage or before the reproductive stage. So normally birds lay eggs during some particular period, right? During particular period only birds, they will lay eggs. But in poultry farms and all, what we are doing, they are making them to lay eggs. That is not some business, some kind of business purpose. So in poultry farms and all, what are they doing? They are making them to lay eggs throughout the year. And how they are doing all these things for business purpose, what and all they are doing, they are making them to lay eggs throughout the year. And for that, they are using different methods. Means different feeding methods, some hormonal changes they are making in their body, right? So, in poultry farms and all, they are making them to lay eggs naturally during a particular period or particular season. During that period only, that bird that will lay eggs. But in farms and all, they are making them to lay eggs throughout the year. That and all, through different feeding habits, through hormonal changes, all these things, it is happening. That you can study in detail later. In placental mammals means they exhibit cyclic changes during reproductive phase. That means they exhibit changes in their ovaries and hormones. Placental mammals means mammals which are having placenta, not like the birds and all. Placental mammals, they in their reproductive stage, what and all their changes are there? They are showing the changes in their ovaries and hormones. In placental mammals, changes are happening in the ovaries and hormones and all. And these cyclic changes, it is called as estrous cycle. It is called as estrous cycle. This estrous cycle is in non-primates. Okay, this is present in non-primates. Non-primates means cow, sheep, then dog, rat, all these things. Non-primates, this estrous cycle is there. Read it as estrus. Okay, this O is silent, estrus cycle. But in primates, it is called as menstrual cycle. In primates, it is called as menstrual cycle, and in non-primates, it is called as estrus cycle. So in what is that? In placental mammals, the mammals with placenta, they exhibit cyclic changes. During the reproductive stages, they are showing cyclic changes. Cyclic changes in the sense they are showing changes in their hormones, ovaries and all. And the cyclic changes are called as estrous cycle in primates. In non-primates, it is called as estrous cycle. Sorry, in non-primates, it is called as estrous cycle. But in primates, it is called as menstrual cycle. The cyclic changes during reproductive stage. In primates, it is called as menstrual cycle. But in non-primates, it is called as estrous cycle. Note down these two. Then the females of placental mammals exhibit cyclic changes in the ovaries, accessory ducts and the hormones during reproductive stages or reproductive phase. And the cyclic changes is called estrous cycle in non-primates and menstrual cycle in primates. Is it clear? Next point is based on breeding season, mammals are of two types. Based on breeding season, in which season they are breeding. Based on that, mammals are of two types. Seasonal breeders, the mammals exhibiting reproductive cycle only during favorable season. They are called seasonal breeders. The mammals which are exhibiting reproductive cycle only during favorable seasons or during the natural conditions. The mammals which are breeding during natural conditions or which are showing their breeding or reproductive cycle only during the favorable season. When the favorable season comes, only during that season or in the natural condition, only during that condition they will undergo breeding. Such mammals are called as seasonal breeders. Seasonal breeders means they'll breed under natural condition. When the favorable condition comes, only during that period that breeding takes place. That kind of mammals are called as seasonal breeders. You can see horse, sheep, deer and all. These things and all, they are seasonal breeders or natural breeding will take place in these. So continuous breeders, they are the reproductive they are reproductively active throughout the reproductive phase. So throughout the reproductive phase, they will be active or active reproduction will take place through the reproductive. Whenever the body is ready or the reproductive phase, when the reproductive phase will come, they are reproductively active. Whenever that mammals or the condition which I said, in primates, the cyclic changes, menstrual cycle, that cyclic changes is happening. Whenever that cyclic changes are going on, that time and all, that organism is reproductively active. So during that time, they are ready for reproduction. Such kind of mammals are called as continuous breeders. Human beings, chimpanzees and all you can see. So they are continuous breeders because whenever the body is ready for a breeding or a reproductive phase, in that whenever their reproductive or cyclic changes or menstrual cycle, such things and all active in their body, that organism is ready for reproduction. So they are the continuous, that comes after some particular interval in each organism, in such type of organism. So that time and all, that organism will be ready for, or that mammal will be ready for the reproduction, or that reproductive stage is active in that mammal. So such kind of mammals are called as continuous breeders, but seasonal breeders are, they will undergo this breeding only during natural condition. Okay, or when the favorable season comes, that time only it will undergo breeding. Is it clear? So next is senescence or old age. From where we have started? Yes, we have started from the stages of life cycle, right? So we have learned juvenile phase. Next, reproductive stage is clear now. Now the third phase is senescence phase or old age phase. Senescence phase or old age phase. This is the last phase of life cycle or lifespan. This is the ending phase of lifespan. And this is the ending. The starting of senescence means that is the ending of reproductive phase. When the senescence or old age, this phase starts, the reproductive stage will end. After ending the reproductive phase, the senescence stage will start. Here you can see in this picture. See, this and all the in animals, this is the growing stage, reproductive stage, and this is the old age or ending or senescence. Here in plants, it is very clear. This is the growing stage. The plant is growing step by step. Here flowering is there. This is the reproductive stage. Then senescence. Slowly, each part is dying. Here, the dried plant you can see. So, this is the senescence stage is the end of reproductive phase. This is the natural changes which are happening during this stage. Okay, so this is the last phase of lifespan and end of reproductive phase. Senescence is the end of reproductive phase, and during this, concomitant changes occurs in the body. Concomitant means naturally, that stage by stage changes which are naturally happening, that is following naturally. That changes will occur in the body of plant or animal. Either it may be a plant or animal, whatever may be, the stepwise changes which are occurring, which are happening naturally, that will happen in the body of organism. For example, slowing of metabolism. The process of metabolism, it will slow down and ultimately everything will come down and it leads to the death of the organism. Right? The metabolic process, it will slow down, and growth, it will slow down. Ultimately, the organism will die. So that stage is called as senescence. Senescence is nothing but the death stage or the final stage or the last stage of a life cycle of an organism. Is it clear? Senescence phase. This is post-reproductive phase. Post-reproductive means after reproductive phase, this senescence phase is coming. That involves deterioration. Deterioration means from the starting stage, slowly or progressively, the situation is becoming very worst. Means the condition is becoming very worst, and finally it is reaching near death. Okay. This is not a sudden process, slowly, stepwise process. And during this period, waste metabolites accumulate in body and this leads to death. Waste metabolic products, everything will accumulate in the body and that will lead to the death of the organism. So that is called a senescence stage. So in plants and animals, hormones that will cause the transition between juvenile stage to reproductive stage, then reproductive stage to senescence phase. So in plants and animals, from one stage to another stage, this transition is taking place. So along with this hormonal changes, that phases also will change. From one phase to another phase, it will move. Along with that, hormonal changes also happen. And that hormonal changes, that is the reason for change from one stage to another stage. So interaction between hormones and the environmental factors that regulates the reproductive process and the associated behavioral expression of the organism. So from one stage to another stage, when an organism is moving from one stage to another stage, there is some morphological changes and behavioral changes. All these things will happen in one organism. So that is the result of the interaction between the hormone and environmental factors. There will be some hormonal changes from one stage to another stage. When an organism is moving, there will be some kind of hormonal changes. So that will interact with the external environment, and that will form the, or that will regulate the whole body process or the phases, whole phases in the life cycle. So the hormonal changes will happen when an organism is moving from one stage to another stage. So when it is moving from juvenile stage to reproductive stage, and finally it is reaching the senescence phase, there is some kind of hormonal changes, and these hormonal changes will interact with the external environment, and that may cause the behavioral expression or behavioral changes or the morphological changes of that particular organism. Is it clear? Up to this, is it clear? I think it's clear up to this. Next, we are moving to events in sexual reproduction. If I'm starting this now, I cannot complete. So this events in sexual reproduction, that we'll discuss in the next class. So up to this, what and all terms, which and all technical terms I have used, everything is clear to you people. Is it clear? You want me to repeat anything? Hope everything is clear. So next class we'll move to events in sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, so many events are there: pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. So all these we need to discuss in detail. In the next class, I'll explain all these things. So in the next class, we are going to complete the first chapter. So I'll share you the questions today. Just go through the questions and previous year questions also. Go through all those things. Try to cover from each topic all the questions. And along with that, make notes. Read all these portions at least once. Then next class we will be completing this chapter, okay? So up to this, everything is clear? Please reply.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in next class we'll continue. We'll continue the sexual reproduction and we'll complete the portion. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, students. Thank you so much. We will meet in the next class.